Now we are moving on to the assembling of this particular universal coupling, as we have finished the modeling. So we'll continue with the assembling of all these particular components. So name it as universal coupling assembly, go with assembly design and say OK. And now retrieve the first component, going with center block, and make this as default and say done, so that first component has been assembled. And calling the next fork component and assemble this fork component, going with inserting this particular surface with this particular surface, Control Alt and rotate this, and going with this surface and this surface with oriented, and take the bottom surface of this fork and the top surface of this collar, top surface of this center block to assemble with respect to each other and just mate with each other. New constraint, going with take this bottom surface and this top surface to mate with respect to each other and say done. So this gets assembled. And now call that same fork part again and assemble onto the other side. So insert with respect to this and this, and select this surface and this surface of the model and mate it, and select this face and this face, go with new constraint, select this face and this face, and going with align angle and mating. So remove this mate and add a new constraint, just this face to the back face of this, and say done. So it gets assembled. And now call the pin which needs to be assembled, go with pin and say insert this surface with respect to this surface, and take this bottom surface of the fork and this surface of this to mate with respect to each other and say done. And now call the pin again for the other side, say insert this and this and mate this surface with this surface and say mate at this location so that it gets oriented and say done. So two pins and two forks has been assembled. And now call the collar part and just say insert, and while assembling this particular collar, this hole and this hole should be aligned. So just select this insert surface and this surface so that it gets inserted and it gets assembled properly and say done. Okay, and the same way call the same collar part again and say insert with this pin surface and this pin surface to insert, and here also the same way this surface, this hole on the collar and hole on the pin should match. So select this cylindrical surface and select this cylindrical surface on the pin so that it gets aligned with respect to each other and say done. So this way all the collar, pin and has been assembled. And now call the lock pin again and go with insert and insert with respect to this, and switch on the datum planes and select the center datum of this collar with center datum of this to mate each other. Okay, so the pin has been assembled at that location and say done. And in the same way call this lock pin again by retrieving it and assemble it at this particular location. Go with insert cylindrical surface to the cylindrical surface and select the center datum and center datum of the collar and make it mate, that is align with respect to each other, so that these components will be assembled at that particular location to lock that particular collar coming out from that. This completes assembly of the universal coupling.